Hey, what's up, guys? It is Batteries Included here for another podcast. This is our second one. Today we're going to be talking about social media and how we think, like what we think about social media, basically, whether it's bad or good, and what it's doing in our lives as a society. My name is Noah, and these guys are here.
Hey, what's up? My name is Colton. I live in Cedarville, Ohio. I'm a freshman at Cedarville University, and I'm a nursing major. Yeah.
And I'm Osborne, and you already know me from the last podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
That is true.
So, I guess like with social media,
Are we recording right now?
Yeah. What?
Okay.
Yeah. So with social
Hey,
media.
Noah, by the way, nice intro. I liked it. It was really good. We'll put together.
How many was there? That's
Only about 2. Hey, but guys, so I watched the movie Tag recently.
I haven't.
It is hilarious.
I saw
It
the
is
trailer. I wanted to see that. Oh wait, that's
It is-
Andy from
yeah,
The Office.
It is so funny. And like, you know, it's based off a true story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Really?
they like at the end of a movie, they have clips of like the actual group of friends like tagging each other
That's
Like-
so fun.
in their 40s and like in their 30s and 40s.
Bro, that's
and-
dope.
It's hilarious. Like they go far out. Like there's one of her friends disguised themselves as like a old lady, and was like pushing into the mall, and then like came up right behind him and smacked him.
How did they hear about this and like want to make a movie on it?
So, if the movie is accurate, one guy was like the CEO of his business, and he was getting interviewed by someone. And as he was getting interviewed by someone, because the rules of the game is like you're allowed to get tagged no matter what, right?
Mhm.
So as he was being interviewed by this person doing a paper on his company, his friend was disguised as a janitor and goes into this conference room and tries to tag his buddy. And the interviewer is like, this game of tag that you've been playing for like 30 years is so much more interesting than your company. And so they followed them around trying to tag everybody and whatnot. And so it became like a newspaper headline as an article.
That's cool.
So they were just like trying to tag everybody, and then like the news. That's what? But
So-
like, I really want to see the movie because
Let me see
Andy from
if
The
I can give
Office
like
is
a synopsis of the story.
And Nick from New Girl's in it too.
I don't really watch New Girls. Like, I don't
It's
know.
very inappropriate, but it's really good. It's funny.
Alright, let's see here.
It's inappropriate, but I watch it. That's basically what you
No.
said.
So it's based off a true story.
No.
That
I just
that
know
was
that.
it was a coast to coast game of tag for 30 years, and every February since 1990, every February that was like the gap of time that the game of tag was enacted. So it wasn't every day all year. It was every day within the month of February.
Oh, okay.
And so if you were, and so there was people that were tagged. It was 10 people, 10 friends did it, and then it became in 2013 it became a Wall Street Journal article, and
Bro, we should do this.
and he said it was a way for them to maintain their friendship, take a month out of every year. No matter where you were in the world, you could be tagged. So the whole game was just to get people over and over and over, no matter like where you were.
That's
There's-
sweet.
Like in the movie, there's stories. There's like examples of them tagging their friends during like their child's birth, during their like
Oh yeah, that was in the trailer.
during like
Yeah.
the wedding and all this other stuff.
That's
But-
awesome.
It's actually based off of a true story of a group of 10 people playing tag, the same game of tag, 1 month out of every year for 30 years.
That's crazy.
That's so, dude. Imagine like
That's
at
awesome.
Jason's wedding, I like come out and I just tag him, like I like grab his
Tackle the
shoulder.
officiary.
Trent Goosh. Get
So-
out of here.
That's that, and it's pretty. I watched that recently. It's a good movie. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
Okay, so I have a question
All right.
Okay.
for you guys. What do you guys think about movies that are bad but are funny, but you still watch them? Like,
Oh, love them.
what do you guys think about that?
Love
No
'em.
hesitation.
Yeah, because think about it. One of my favorite movies of all time is Tropic Thunder. Okay.
Good movie. Good movie.
Yeah.
Buddha, 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 Buddha.
Never seen it, but good movie.
You never seen Tropic Thunder?
Okay, I've seen like half of it, and
You're terrible, man.
I need to
Oh.
finish it.
You're terrible. It's such.
That
a
has like Robert Downey Jr. in it, right?
Yeah, he's doing
Yeah.
blackface too.
Yeah, blackface. Yeah, I've seen
Oh.
that part.
Oh, Colin, to what you're saying, I think there is some like it's not the best thing for a developing mind. And the reason why I say that is because what I can think of is like
Like if
when
you're
I grew up-
insecure, is what you're saying.
well, not just that, but when I grew up as a kid, there's certain movies I weren't allowed to watch. Right?
Yeah.
I think every good family is like that. There's going to be some movies that you're just simply not allowed to watch at 5 years old, 6 years old, 8 years old, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my parents, they've gave me a good sense of what it is to be a good human being. First of all, like they gave me my set of morals, they gave me my set of thinking, and slowly and slowly and slowly, they introduced me into a much more mature environment. When they felt, and also I was going to meet it. Rubber was going to meet the road anyways.
hmm
That I was going to be put in that environment sometime. So they slowly acclimated me to this. Like movies were a great way of doing that. Like this is violence. This is what cursing is. This is what X, Y, and Z is. And after a lot of times, I remember my dad. There's one movie that he wouldn't let me watch unless I wrote a 2-page paper on the. No joke.
What was the movie?
I wasn't allowed to watch X-Men: The First Class.
Good movie.
I wasn't allowed to watch. I wasn't allowed to watch a movie
Bruce.
unless I wrote a 2-page paper on why Magneto was like on Magneto's values, the bad guy's values. I wasn't allowed to watch it until I wrote a 2-page paper discussing the values and morals of a bad guy and the values and morals of a good guy, and why I think one should win and one shouldn't win. It was as if, and this was just for fun. Like this is like I wanted to see the movie so badly that I was willing to write a 2-page paper about the movie, and then we
like did you have to like look at articles and then
no, it was like I watched the movie and then I write what I thought about the movie out.
what? Wait, was it rated R?
No, it wasn't. It was just like my dad at the time was like, I think that's a little intense for you, but I think you're also at a point where you could process these things and understand what's going on. So if you want to do this, and I want to see where you're at mentally, basically, you're gonna have to write a paper for me to convince me that I want to let you see this. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So it was probably this really crappy paper. It was a really crappy article,
Like,
but
just like halved it, you know.
but I don't think movies are. It's more of a discussion of, in my opinion, how are you raised? How do you think?
Yeah.
Because right now I watch a bunch of terrible movies. Not like there's not some super terrible ones ever. Like if it's a 1 to 10 scale, I'm probably like in the 6, 7, 8 range. But like I watched Deadpool and I laughed my butt off watching Deadpool.
I didn't see Deadpool.
But
have you seen it, Colton?
Nope.
But the thing is, I also am sure I'm also certain and stronghold in what I believe and think, and so that way I don't
See,
think
that's my thing. I'm pretty like
I don't think
stubborn when it comes to my beliefs. So it like whenever I watch a movie, it doesn't
So-
affect me that much. Like
Yeah.
there's always gonna be some sort of effect whenever you watch something.
So
So and that can go in like anything you see on the internet, anything that you see like movies, TVs, what you read on like Twitter
Yeah.
or Facebook or whatever.
So it all kind of what I think it all kind of boils down to personal conviction, and if
sure, yeah.
if I feel personally convicted that I don't want to watch this or whatever, I won't do it. And then, but if I'm like, okay, I'm not tempted by this certain sin, and I go watch a movie,
Okay.
it's fine. But if someone else struggles with that sin, and I'm with that person, I'm not gonna say like I really want to go watch this movie. I'm gonna take this person with me because it's nothing to me, but other people might struggle with something different, and it's not
Yeah, and other
it's
people,
not right to. That's very selfish of you to because other people might struggle with something different. I was literally reading with Jonathan Zaharik. He was on the podcast last
the
time,
first podcast.
but I had a Bible study with him yesterday, and we were reading in 1 Corinthians 10, and it says 10:23. It says, "All things are lawful, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. Let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor." So, with that being said, like, I mean, all things are lawful. You can do a lot of things, but is it really helpful in that sense? And that boils down to
And
personal
I think
conviction.
we need to clarify something for people who aren't Christian or don't understand what we're talking about. He's not saying all things are lawful as in like if you go by and look at like Moses' law, that is what God considers to be good if you obey that law. So he's saying like things that aren't the law, like going and having sex with somebody that isn't your wife, for example, adultery, and you go have sex with them. That's not what God is saying. God is not saying like, oh, that's lawful, but it's not helpful. But you like it's, you guys know what I mean. Like if you guys can explain that better, but I thought we should just clarify that.
Yeah.
Like, that verse isn't saying all things are lawful.
Yeah.
It's saying all things are lawful except for the things that I've said that aren't lawful. Like it's piecing that over here just so that anyone who got confused by that.
I think it's more
not a contradiction. It's just context.
And there's other versions of it say all things are permissible, not lawful. It's like a translation thing. And I think that falls under more of we like as the choice of free will, we can do whatever we want, but that also doesn't build up righteousness. It doesn't build up sacrificing oneself to help another person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't build up, and like you're saying, it doesn't build up that all things are good. So I'm not sure if it's exactly the literal law of the Bible, or if it's a literal like what we would consider like the law of humanity, saying that there's some things you can do and some things you can't do. So I'm not sure along those lines either, because like I said, other translations say
God always sets the moral principle in this world. So it's not of humanity that like morals come about, because without morals, then like the only reason that there are morals is because God exists. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's not the case.
Yeah.
I'm saying
but we can observe like what God is and what God has bestowed in us, because naturally we are moral beings and rational. So that comes into play in like how we see life, and but yeah, and it like everyone. I don't mean to get a different topic, but just real quick. I'm taking an ethics class and ethics and morality class, and so we're learning about Immanuel Kant right now. So Kantianism, and one girl in my class asked, "So why do we have different morals?" And the teacher said, "We'll get more into that once we get more into Kant," he didn't really answer the question, and I was kind of thinking about that myself. And I didn't look ahead in the chapter, so we'll see next week. But I think that the reason why we have different morals are because it's all a matter of like, yeah, we're made in the image of God, and yes, we're all moral and rational beings, but we can have deviations in our morality, depending on how we grew up, what culture we grew up in. But we're all, literally, you could go to the most primitive tribe, and there's one in India that has been completely untouched. Jason was telling me about this. Maybe he could tell us some other time, but I don't think
it was in India, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the Middle East, or it's on one of the islands, right in the Indian Ocean, and they're not killing each other. They have a community, and they have the morals to protect each other. So some people actually have been attacked going to the island. Some Christians trying to go in and spread the gospel because it's our calling, it's our mission in life, and so some people went in and they got attacked. I don't know if they died or not, but the people, they came in on a boat, and they were trying to do all sorts of stuff it was not a good it was a culture shock for them, and they got scared, I'm sure, and because they're living off of sticks and stones and basically in mud huts and stuff like that on this island, and they have this community, and they're completely untouched. They have their own language, and they're really smart, obviously. I mean,
what does this have to do with
I'm saying
what we're talking about?
Okay, sorry.
You saying that?
I'm gonna get back to that. I was just.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting, the moral, how we can have different morals, and things like what we watch, for example, or what we look at on the internet affect our morality.
Yeah.
So what you put in your life is gonna affect your morality and rationality.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting.
To answer.
Yeah, sorry.
Or I was thinking about this. So Noah, your point of why, or your question of why do some people have different moralities, right? I think, well, the first answer for that is obviously sin. Sin is the biggest thing. Sin is the pollutants and cancer of mankind, humankind. And we know that to be true. Sin is what causes death. Yep. It's also the reason why we have a bunch of different genetic defects. We have a bunch of different... I know there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with this, but that doesn't matter. A lot of different birth defects, a lot of different mental diseases is because of...
Oh. Internet?
Adam and Eve would be relatively the same. They had the gene pool of humanity was perfect at that point. There's no imperfection.
Yep.
Okay. Any kids they would have had would have been perfect. All right. But also when you look at that, Adam and Eve were perfect in the sense of they had a perfect morality, they had perfect love, they had perfect sense of right and wrong. They knew that. And so, if you look at the same thing of sin correcting the gene pool, and over thousands and thousands of years where humans didn't live as long, and we started polluting the air, and then our gene pool morphed and had mutations, and now we have people that are born without limbs, or humans that are born with two heads
or
but one body.
Micropenis.
That's not supposed to exist. That's not something that's supposed to. exist within natural in a perfect world. Those things aren't supposed to exist in a perfect world. So having different moralities wouldn't exist. I don't think would exist in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Because everyone else would be perfect. Everyone else would be unique, but they'd still be perfect.
Yeah.
And this morality comes from thousands of years of sin slowly tainting what we once had was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get, especially now, about 6,000 or 6,500 years later.
Yeah, 6 to 7,000. Let's just say somewhere in that range.
When you got that much time go by, and that much you have something like sin, basically death itself corrupt the humanity throughout that time, without any salvation, then you're going to get some sick, twisted people, and that's just how people are influenced.
Yeah.
But
and another question is, so kind of moving on to our topic, I guess, segueing, how like can social media affect our environment? Like why do people look up to certain people like Kardashians and like all these people? Like why do people look up to, like, why do you guys think? What's your opinion on social media? And
people are too freaking insecure. That's why. I think.
Like, well, so they're insecure. So you're saying they're insecure, so they look and idolize or try to make a role model out of this person who's an influencer on like Twitter or on TV.
And for some people it's good, and for some people it's bad. Now, for example, let's take the Kim or the Kardashians. It's like, okay, you got a 14, 15, 16-year-old girl, and they're going through a bunch of stuff, and then they got. Wait,
what?
Oh no! Listen. Seriously.
No, keep going on.
Because all right, so no, obviously you got a girl that's going through her puberty. Her hormones are crazy. She doesn't know what she thinks about herself. She doesn't think that she's pretty, but some dude down the hall thinks.
Sorry. I don't watch the Kardashians. So is that?
This is example. This isn't like. This isn't something that actually happened.
I'm sorry. I thought you were referencing.
But then you see every day that she wakes up and she's like, okay, I'm gonna go check on my Instagram real quick, and then I follow all the Kardashians on Instagram, and I'll go to their daily feed and see what they're posting. Oh, she has a big butt, or she got boobs, or better lips, or whatever. Everyone likes her. Everyone acts like they like her. And so, oh, maybe I need this so everyone likes me, or I feel better about myself. All of a sudden, you got a 16-year-old girl who's depressed, who's insecure, because they don't look a certain way, but they're only, like, the way they get this, like, little spike of happiness is like, oh, this is what I'm going to look like, or this is what I'm going to work towards, or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, but don't get me wrong, it works the same way.
So you're saying, like, going off of that, so we know from scientific studies and what people say on social media and how there's awareness for this, like, depression can be caused from these people. Like, they're not directly, like, trying to cause people to have depression, but they're posting like these really nice photos of them, and they're like high quality actor photos, and they look really like pretty or handsome or whatever, and the guy or the girl is like trying to look like that role model basically to them, and they're idolizing them, and they're saying, man, I want to be like them, but I can't because I'm me. But they're like not trying to be themselves, they're trying to be like this person, so they get depressed. Like,
yeah, kind of basically like that. I think that social media news outlets are the two big reasons why we've had a spike in depression in the last 15 years. I completely believe that.
I would agree with that. A lot of the things that I see on the news are like negative and like really just kind of like, bro, why do you have to say that? Like, that's terrible.
A lot of news outlets follow the model of like, you can't look away from a car crash. But like a car crash happens, people are like, oh my gosh, it's so terrible, someone gets hurt, but they can't look away, they can't stop looking at it. And so
Yeah,
what
I'm
happens
curious
is you
what
got
happened, yeah.
what happens is that you got a bunch of news outlets posting all this bad stuff. And it's not really necessarily bad as in like immoral or overly sexualized or anything like that, but it's just like depressing. Oh, this is what happened in the world. We got car accidents on I-70. We got someone just got shot and murdered in Texas or whatever like that. And these depressing things, if that's all you intake all the time, all of a sudden you're like, especially if you have a person that's insecure, all of a sudden you're like, oh, the world sucks right now. Life is miserable. What's the point of it all? And then you got someone that goes into depression because of that. And it's just because of that kind of like broadcasting model of people can't look away from a car crash.
Yeah,
But you also got people that are insecure all the time, and they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, basically.
Yeah. What's your opinion on it, Colton? Like what? seemed like
Well,
it is.
I totally agree with depression, but there's a lot of different things that come out of it. I mean, I'm kind of playing like devil's advocate here, but I think the cons totally outweigh the pros. There's only like two pros, but like I think it can also motivate people to get out of the room
100%.
and like maybe work out or use their bodies and like get in shape maybe if they were in shape at all.
Yeah,
and like
if they're promoting it the
steward
right
their
way.
bodies well. If they're promoting it the right way, yeah, it's definitely a healthy thing. If they weren't eating right and they see someone, it's definitely motivating. But also,
Well, yeah, okay.
if there's people that can take it the wrong way as well, and they can say like, "Wow, they look really good. I want to look like that, but there's no way I can look like that. So I'm just gonna sit here and just live in their life and not my life."
There's a lot of
And so
pessimism going on about
so
how you look at your own self, because like, some people have like a mental disorder of like they look in the mirror and they see themselves as like fat, but they're not.
Yeah.
Or they look in the mirror, they see themselves as skinny, like too skinny, and they're not. And so.
And it's crazy because like, we're all made differently. God made us unique in our own ways, and
yeah, we're all beautiful.
it's kind of crazy because like sometimes like I have a little bit bigger nose than some people, and like
It's cute.
but like, I'm not saying like I'm not saying anything about it. Like it's some people are just different, and everybody's beautiful in their own way. Like
your hair's too blonde, dog. Like,
dude, dang it.
it's just way too much. I'm just kidding.
But like, you know what I mean? Like, it's even like a tiny bit different. Okay, so this is what's wrong. So like, they put out a Barbie, and that's the standard, and everybody has to be like that, and that's not true at all.
Yeah, that's terrible. I know. I get that.
That's one. I mean, that's one aspect of beauty.
You know,
There's so many aspects of beauty that go along with God's creation. Like that's just one style that God created, and there's so many other styles of humans that are beautiful in their own ways.
Yeah, and that's why like social media can affect like the way you think
most definitely
about women, especially like, and like how men look at men, and like I don't know, I'm not a girl, so I don't know how girls necessarily look at guys on the internet. Probably in a similar way, just not the same. I don't know. The men and women are different, so I don't want to.
All right, move on.
Yeah, moving on.
Someone was I heard this from someone I met through a bunch of different places I worked at, but they're like, you can't follow a person off of what they look like. You have to be able to, if you're gonna follow someone, you got to make sure you have, or they have the right values. So I think I feel like the same thing can apply to like social media too. If we're staying on that topic of, let's say for example, The Rock. A lot of people like The Rock because of the way he looks, but a lot of people don't know, or some do, that he has a really good message and a really good story
Yeah,
of
he
how he works nonstop, of how he gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and works out before doing any of his shooting for movies or anything like that. How he does like 3 movies at the same time, and the reason why he's able to do that is because he puts in the discipline and the hard work. So I feel like it's much easier to attach, and it's much easier to grow in the face of I want to follow his values and what he holds as like good values and good disciplines to have, rather than like, oh, I just want to get jacked and have a physique like The Rock, and if I don't do that, then I'm not gonna be anything. But you could say, oh yeah, I want to wake up earlier so I have more time of my conscious day to get more stuff done, and I'm going to wake up 30 minutes earlier so I can plan my workout, or I'm going to wake up an hour earlier so that way I could write out my meal plan for the week, and that way I can stay to a diet. It's I feel like that's something that people could attach to more than saying, oh, I just want to look like that, or I want to be popular like that, or I want to whatever. I want to have a house like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Do you know who else has a good message is Kevin Hart, but I mean, and he's hilarious too. But dude, I love Kevin Hart because he's like he's like cleaner and he's a family man.
He's not cleaner, bro. He's not cleaner.
He's not clean at all.
From the things I've seen of him, they're pretty clean. Other than his like language, like I don't know. I guess does he objectify women? I don't know.
Hey, Cole,
I don't know.
How much of that podcast did you listen to any more of that podcast I sent you?
No, I
The
didn't.
Jocko podcast.
No.
That's an idea of
What a guy.
That's an idea of someone that I feel like it's easier to get behind his values than to get behind what he looks like or how people think of him. You know. Or were you able to pick that up at all from that
Yeah.
podcast? Or I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What do you think? His whole like motto is discipline equals freedom,
hmm
and so like discipline in all things equals freedom in all things. Having the discipline to wake up earlier is freedom and being able to do what you want with your day. Having the discipline with working out harder or better is having the freedom to live a longer, more healthy life. Having the discipline to read books is the freedom to be able to be knowledgeable, to go into whatever field you want to go into, that kind of idea. But I don't know if that was something
It's
that
true.
because I sent it to you to listen to. I didn't know if that's something you like picked up on or didn't.
Yeah.
And kind of like was talking about those values to attach to, but
Yeah.
And I think we need more of that in just like the way that we see like our social media. So okay, if you're looking at social media, we need more of a light in social media right now, especially with all the politics that's coming in. Like, there's way too many famous people trying to get into politics that they don't know about and that they honestly don't care about. They're just trying to get more followers. So that's my opinion on politics and social media. I think it's a good thing to have politics and social media mixed, but in the way that and how negative it is. Like, all people are posting is just horrible things, like, oh, bombs were sent to Obama and Bill Clinton, and it's that's terrible.
So all right,
why is everyone posting about one thing? Why can't there be good things too? That's
you want to hear? You don't have an Instagram, right, Colton?
No.
And you don't know it, do you?
I do, but I never get on it.
Okay, so here's a point that I think is interesting. Have you heard of this idea of that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? Have you heard that saying? Another one would go along with
So okay, so this is what I think. What you're meaning is show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Basically, yeah. That's
in that
kind of,
sense.
it's kind of the same idea.
That's what I've grown up listening to, and my dad solidified that in my mind.
And look at us, we're all becoming EMTs except for Osborne.
Shut up.
Well, I became an EMT first, so
So
Well,
along with the
no one
idea of like,
cares.
along with the idea of, like, you're kind of like what you surround yourself with is what you're going to be, kind of like is what you're kind of emulate, is what those role models is what we want to emulate towards. And the ultimate one should be God, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We everyone who puts someone higher than themselves is gonna start to emulate whatever's higher than themselves.
Yeah.
But for example, a lot of people just don't want to do that because they feel guilty every time they see that. And that comes with an insecure, no confidence thing of like, if I see someone doing better than me, and I don't think of that as motivation, I think of it as someone doing better than me, so therefore I'm no good.
Wait, that's how you think of it?
No, you have some groups like that, but for me, for example,
okay,
the first thing I open up when I open my Instagram, I see things from a group of people that does a lot of chef work, a lot of restaurateuring. I see things from Tim Kennedy, who was in the Green Beret.
Forces. Yeah,
Yeah, he was Special Forces Army, who has a great message. I see people from a lot of it's called Mind Pump Fitness. They're people that are, I guess I'm shouting out a lot of people, but this is all the things that come up on my Instagram are things that are people that have same ideals as me, and also I share the same ideals as with them, and so they kind of help reinforce that into me.
So you're bringing that concept of like you're the average of your friends into Instagram right now.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
listen to this. Okay, so you're saying what you watch, what you watch, what you put into your mind translates to how you act.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the first question I asked, do you think like watching not very good shows morally, or
like New Girl?
Yeah, like New Girl or Tropic Thunder, or like watching shows that cuss every like other word, or like
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
If you watch those all the time, you're gonna start experiencing like you thinking in that, or like sometimes you saying that, or like yeah. So I believe that's totally true, and I try to limit myself to like not totally filling my mind with that. However, I'm not saying like I don't watch those shows, because I do watch New Girl, and it's very funny. I really enjoy New Girl.
Yeah.
But so I kind of want to tell a story about my summer, and about like what you put in your mind, what you are surrounded with, is how it translates to how you think and how you act.
Yeah.
So I became an EMT last year, and I started working this past summer in a town called Springfield, right next to Cedarville, Ohio. And I worked at a private company. And so while I was working there, I had a lot of coworkers who were just not very, like, they're nice people, but they're like cussed a lot, and like were very like profanity and like all that stuff, and like very just not very good people. And just from working with them, I worked several hours. I worked 40 hours a week plus overtime. So sometimes I was working 60 hours a week. Sometimes I was working less, but my minimum was 40 hours a week. So I was with them a lot. And so each shift is about like 12 hours long, minimum, or I could do a 24-hour or longer. So I was with them a lot and all day. And when I just heard every day like cussing every other word, or like they're very negative humor, because that's how they said they got through the day. Because we see things that a lot of people have PTSD over, and their way of coping through that is having that dark humor or very negative humor, and that's how they said they coped with what they see. And so from being a part of that, and I tried to set myself apart from all of that, and they know that. And sometimes they're like cussing, and they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Colton, you don't do that," and I'm sorry. And I was like, "Hey, I'm not here to judge you. I'm not going to participate into it, but if I'm not going to judge you for doing it." And they respect me a lot, so sometimes they don't do it around me. But I started towards the end of the summer, started like thinking in that language just because I was around it so much.
Yeah.
And I prayed almost every day about like, Lord, please help me to stand firm in my beliefs and stand firm in what I said to them, because they're like, "Oh, you'll fall into the EMS life, and you'll fall into this dark humor or whatever." And I was like, "Hey, I'm not relying on myself. I have a firm foundation in Christ, in God, that if it was by my own doing, I would fail every time. But I have
True that,
God
brother.
on my side." And so like I prayed almost every day about like standing firm and being consistent in what I like believed in. And it was very hard because it would be very easy to just like cuss in a circumstance that was very stressful. And but the Lord helped me through all that. And if I was working on my own, I would fall into that. And that's so true about whatever you surround yourself with. You're going to start thinking in that. And I did start thinking in that, but the Lord helped me with all that. So that's just a testimony of how true that statement is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I can even give an example for me personally. I like Fortnite. Just giving this is really a much lighter-hearted example. So whenever I watch videos on YouTube about Fortnite, that's when I start really getting into Fortnite again, and that's been what's and I start being like those people that I watch. You know, like I'm like, oh, I want to be like them, so I gotta play this amount of time, and I have to play this way. So I think in that way, and it's a much lighthearted example. I could think of a lot of examples in my personal life that probably don't want to hear, but yeah. But dude, so I totally agree with that, because like there's a lot of bad things on the internet. Like I'm sure we don't need to get into it, but yeah, I'm sure you guys can get the picture. So that your brain is affected by literally everything you see, whether you believe that or not. It's true. It's scientifically like proven. So I guess just like with social media, it's just, you gotta be really careful. Because like I've used social media and it's taken me down the rabbit hole of getting like to a dark point. And I had to make a choice, like whether or not I was gonna follow that darkness or not follow it. And so and I usually choose the not following it. And that's because of the Lord in my life, showing me that His ways are better than my ways, better than worldly ways. Because why waste your time on something that's going to ruin you? And you know, because I mean, people show it all over the news. Like you see that, oh, girl killed herself after depression, like her depression of social media. She was getting cyberbullied and she got killed. She killed herself because it was her name. She was a YouTuber. It's like Zisker or something like that. I don't know. It was a weird name. But she ended up killing herself because she was getting cyberbullied because she was like, because she would make makeup videos, makeup tutorials and stuff like that, and she just like, people would tell her she's ugly, and like, she would get tons of views and a lot of cyberbullying. So
I have a it's not well put together, but I recently heard a podcast of like this guy who he was a UFC fighter and all these other things, and he would get when he got in his head that he would lose, and then when he got in his head of, if he it was kind of like what's that thing? It's not a flop. It's like the yips. Is that what it's called? If you keep losing all the yips. But he got it in his head that I'm not that good of a fighter, so he'd lose to people that he should have been able to beat, no problem. And then he went and saw a sports therapist, and when the sports therapist did some work with him, and he would get it in his head that I'm a fighter, nothing's gonna stop me, kind of idea, and it doesn't matter who I'm going against, and he would fight people that are much bigger and much stronger and should have been able to beat him, but he'd keep winning those matches. And so it's kind of like it's a head game, and you're talking about bullying, Noah. I think it's interesting. Like, I want to come back to that whole insecure confidence thing, because those realms expand much farther than I don't like the way I look, or I feel so good about myself. Because the bully in any situation, I'm growing and working in the restaurant industry has shown this a lot to me, because everywhere new you go, there's always going to be a different pecking order, and the thing you do on the first day determines whether or not your prep cook likes you, or your dishwasher likes you, or your chef likes you. And it's a lot of hazing, and it's very much like boot camp-ish. I call any good kitchen a poor man's boot camp, because of a kind of a way that kitchens have been designed throughout the centuries, and how the history of them.
Or a rich man's boot camp, because you're rich.
I mean, it's not a very... Being a cook isn't a very lucrative business.
Well, I'm just saying that you're doing better than me, bud. I got $0 in my savings account. No money.
But the thing is that you grow in a kitchen, you learn to have a very thick skin very early. Either you have a thick skin, or you get torn apart and you're left down the street. So in terms of like bullying and stuff, it's never whoever's, I hate saying this, whoever the victim is, because whenever you victimize something, you're giving power to the victim, or not, you're giving power, you're taking power away from the victim, and that's just a terrible circumstance right there. But whoever the victim is of whatever bullying is going on, whether it's actual physical bullying or cyberbullying, they may not deserve the bullying, or they may have not. Well, no one deserves to be bullied. No one deserves to be hated against.
Yeah.
But they, in my opinion, are the reason why it keeps happening. And I know I'll get flack for.
I wouldn't say that I would agree with you that it's sometimes their fault, like not their fault that it's happening, and like you said, like no bully should be allowed to bully. But
for example, cyberbullying. What good does what actual effect does cyberbullying have on your life?
Well, okay.
No, for real. Let's think about it.
It has no real effect.
If someone sends messages, if someone started sending me messages to my phone, okay, and they're like, "Oh, you're a piece of crap. You do nothing. You don't make any money. You still live at home. You don't even go to college. What are you doing with your life? Whatever." That doesn't. The only person that gives power to that is
the victim.
do I want to say, oh yeah, you're right, or do I want to say, bullcrap, you don't even know who I am? Why should I let your opinion affect me like that? And Cole, I see you getting worked up right there. What I want to like you're getting ready to say something.
Yeah. There's so many variables that go along with
true.
this, dude.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say that.
How people are raised, going back to your morals, going back to like how you were raised, and because like I've worked with a lot of people, psychiatric people that have some very traumatic things growing up, and losing their parents, or like just some crazy things, and anything could trigger like that. And I kind of thought of okay, so we all know, us three both know The Office. All three of us know The Office.
Yeah.
And we watch The Office a lot. And I'm gonna reference The Office a little bit here. So in the episodes,
great source. No, I'm just kidding.
no, okay, so in the episodes where Andy's like, people are like when Michael spreads rumors about everybody. And
that was
and he spreads rumors about everybody, but I want to hit on him spreading rumors about Andy Bernard being gay. And so he knows in his mind, he's like, I'm not gay, like, what the heck. But then a lot of people are saying that.
Is this where you got
wait.
Okay.
Sorry, Michael Scott said Andy Bernard's gay. And so someone else was like, oh, Andy Bernard's gay. And then another person was like, oh, he is. And then he found out, and he's like, I'm not. And then someone else was like, you are? And then he's like, well, maybe I am. And then that whole mentality changed when other people are like,
affirming.
When it just keeps, when it keeps us like festering inside of you, you're fighting it, and you crack. And you're like, oh, maybe I am. And then if it just keeps happening and happening and happening, this can apply to anything. Depression, how you look. If it just keeps, people are like attacking you like it's crazy, then you start to think that way.
I would agree.
And it's terrible. And it's so sad. But there's so many variables that go into that.
I'm not saying, and I get what you're saying. There's so many variables. I'm not saying that, oh, everyone has to be so strong-willed that nothing can ever affect them negatively. Bullying should never affect them. I'm not saying that everyone has to be a certain way. I'm 100% agreeing with you that there are a million different variables, and we have to be empathetic and sympathetic for people that go through these situations, and whether in my mind or your mind or Noah's mind are addressing the issue the right way, we still need to be sympathetic and good, like not good people, but we need to show care and love and take care of them, and as if in a Christ-like fashion. But I also am saying across the general public, allowing something as much as like cyberbullying to affect you, that shouldn't be a big deal. I understand that it is, and I understand that there's a bunch of variables that go into it, upbringing, family, and all that. But
like,
it's like
looking at it, like Osborne, looking at it, like how you're saying from as people would say, a logical standpoint, without emotions, without feelings, without anything else. From a logical standpoint,
I'm not saying it without feelings.
No, I know, but it's almost impossible to not feel anything when someone sends you even a text like, "Hey, dude, you're awesome," or "Hey, dude, you suck." Like,
well, I'm saying this from even my own personal experience. Like I said, there's been kitchens that I go to that for months that I was like talked down on, like I was like nothing else. I'm just like, oh, ha ha, this is nothing. Like you in my mind, I always make a joke of it, like, or a game of it, like, oh, ha ha.
That has to do with your mindset of criticism.
Wait, Wait.
Which
Okay.
people have a different mindset than you of criticism.
Yeah, that's totally right. I understand your point, Osborne, and I totally agree with it. Some, like, across the board, if someone texts you saying you suck and you just blow them off, it will give them less incentive to send another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you take the power away from them.
And then you take the power away from them. Nothing happens. You're like, you don't know me. Like, what the heck? But not like you struggle. Like they struggle with different things you struggle with, and like it's totally different, dude. Like,
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
If they struggled with that their entire life, like growing up, and then they get one text, and then that's like the turning point, or like.
Yeah, I'm not saying we should take one snap and take away everything that's unique about every one person and make them robots.
Using the example, sorry.
I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying that, and we've seen this, especially with the whole news thing and social media. But in the last 15 years, more and more people are becoming, like, I guess, for lack of a better term, softer and are affected more by these things.
More offended.
They're more offended, more easily triggered. They find more. They are easily demoralized by criticism.
Well, that has to do with going back
how
to what Colin said,
raised.
how they're raised. Because if they're raised that they never got disciplined, like if I know people who've never got a spanking in their life, and that's weird to me.
Yeah, those people
so,
need to be.
But like, so they go on and they're going through life, and they graduate high school, and they're like, "I'm a beast. My parents are paying for college. I'm like, I got college paid for. I got a couple of scholarships. My parents told me to get A's in my high school. I did it, and they helped me out and stuff like that. And now I'm at college." And I'm doing it. It's a little harder because I'm alone now, but I still can call my parents. And then they leave college, and that's where life hits you. And I haven't even experienced that yet because I'm still living with my parents. But I can gather from listening to older people talk, that's when life hits you. Is after college, you're not married yet, and you're like, why am I not married? Why do I have no money? Oh, I have to get a job. Oh wait, my parents aren't here to help me all the time. I'm home alone, like that, and that's why people.
But where does that come from?
It comes from their parenting because they're told like you're special, you're awesome, like that's good, but they need to be reinforced with good mannerisms, morals, disciplined. Say, hey, this isn't good. But to now in these days, parents aren't showing them how to use social media. They're not showing them how to look at criticism. They're not showing them like, hey, you're gonna get hate in life, and like this is how you should deal with it. No one's teaching that anymore. No one's spanking their kids. It's just the way things are now, and it's sad to see a lot of these people who are speaking really loudly in social media, like giving off this vibe that everyone's getting offended. And when people like us who are raised right,
no, don't say that.
Okay, who are raised to be disciplined.
Differently.
I wouldn't say even traditionally.
No, differently. I was saying differently, sorry.
Raised differently from those people.
From a norm, yeah. I don't know. I need to go to the bathroom. You guys talk about whatever you want to talk. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick.
What do you have to say, Colin?
Well,
is this something you disagreed?
I don't know. I just cringed at what you like raised right, or like
I know,
raised differently than those
and
people.
I'm sorry if
we're
offended all, because that does offend people because it's personal.
It does, and I'm it's personal to people, and I can't say I can't say for by any means because I'm not a parent and I can't wait to be a parent because I'm so excited. But I can't say by any means because I haven't experienced it yet. I know from a young age that my parents gave me freedom to make my own choices and didn't hold my hand through everything.
Yeah.
And I'm doing all right, and I make my own decisions now. I'm living away from home, and like I can grasp by doing my own things, and my parents held my hand at first, and then they gradually let go, and but to stereotype, I don't know, like the way
the way
you
I
worded it was weird.
I was talking about people who are speaking really loudly on social media and on the news. Being generally, most people aren't this offended. They're in the minority, actually. The majority of people, they can think rationally, and they're like, oh, that's fine that you can say that. We live in America. It's free speech, and stuff like that. And the people who are speaking really loudly is who I was referring to, who I've heard many people talk about, and that was what I said was a sum of what I've heard from people and what I've read in like 2 articles.
Talking about technology, not switching topics, but talking about technology, how we have been talking about like social media, but technology and like parenting. I feel like I've seen a lot. I love kids, and like I've seen a lot of parents, their kid is crying or whatever, and they're in a conversation, and they're like need a remedy like that, and so they pull out their phone from their pocket and be like, "Hey,
I've seen that,
here's this," or like
at the dentist's office, like just chilling, and
or
the kids like,
yeah,
I know what you're talking about,
going crazy, or like even if they're doing work at home, and the kid's like kind of loud or whatever, they're like, go play on your iPad or whatever, and they have their own devices, and like I don't know, I feel like that's kind of brings them up to like, I don't know,
I can kind of finish that
go for it.
So whenever they're bothered by something, or like they need a fix for boredom or whatever, they instead of like going to a person, they go to a device. Kind of, is that what you're kind of going?
Or like even nature, or like Legos, or like it's more.
It's specifically the technology.
The technology
because
you wanna
you don't have control over what they're watching.
A remedy like that. You want a remedy like that.
Yeah.
And technology does give that to you.
I think,
but it's not using your creative mind.
I think you're setting up
your creative aspect.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
This is going to be something that might be. I think you're setting up the wrong question, or like wrong topic, Colin. So instead of saying, like, what do you think of parents that just give their phone to their kid or whatever? Because
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, I'm just
looking for a quick fix. Is that what it is?
Somewhat. I'm not trying to get on this topic, because this is a whole nother topic. We can go on for a while on this topic. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, about technology and about social media and about we got on the topic of parenting, and I have no clue what that means. I love kids. I love spending time with them, but I'm not a parent by any means, so I don't know.
Same.
So I was just saying what I've seen, and to go along with those topics.
Go off of what we've seen. I think it's so. My parents, when I was growing up, my parents did a similar thing to me. But I think the interesting is like, how does good parenting / bad parenting evolve with technology? Now, for example, my parents, when I would like act up or whatever, it would be like, all right. It wasn't just reward. It wasn't just like, here's a phone, or go play on your iPhone, or go play on your tablet or whatever. It was, all right, we're in a dentist's office. Hey, if you're quiet and you want to, if you can be quiet and draw on this piece of paper while we're waiting for your appointment, then when you get home, you get to watch the Backyardigans. Or if you
The back
if
of
you-
it.
if you do 30 minutes of practicing a certain language, then you can get 30 minutes of Xbox time. So it was in my situation. It was never, oh, you're crying, we need to get you shut up. Here's my phone. It was, hey, if you can work in this creative, like you were saying, in this creative manner with
Yeah.
Legos or getting innovative or whatever. Is he frozen? Okay, no.
Yeah, sorry. Someone called me.
Oh,
All right. Okay. Were you able to hear what I was saying?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of, it was never a quick fix. It was always, hey, if you can work in this manner, then you will get a reward. And that also sets up what we were talking about earlier of upbringing of you got to work for what you get. You don't just get it.
yeah.
And it's not just handed to you. So I think if we do choose to go on that topic from the examples that we've seen, it's much more. I think it's much more better addressed as like, how does good parenting and bad parenting change with technology that can better occupy our kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and not even just parenting, Osborne. Like, kind of going with our own personal lives here. That's kind of how we kind of conducted our friendship, because we at first we didn't completely trust each other. Obviously, all of us had to go through a time of like building trust, and so that's how I was brought up, building trust with my parents. That's how I earned freedom, was trust. And my parents would say, we can't trust you to go out. You broke your phone for the 5th time.
sorry.
It's a true story. I had like the same phone like 7 times. But like that's how we conducted our friendship. And so it wasn't just our like parents necessarily, but it was like how we were brought up. But then we used that to gain good friends. And we've been friends, all of us now, for what, like 7 years?
Yeah, longer.
Yeah.
Colton, you're
Yeah, I know. I
Oh,
went
okay.
frozen real fast.
yeah. So that's kind of like what I had to say about that. I thought that was really cool what you said, because my parents did conduct me in the same way of like, hey, if you do this chore or if you go do your school work, you can have fun with Caleb on the Xbox. And then, but they would also say you need to share the Xbox, because
Right.
me and my brother will always be fighting for the Xbox. But,
There's I'm sorry, this is completely off current topic. It relates to our old topic of social media and news and stuff.
Mhm.
But I feel like it has to be said now rather than later. Because we consume social media the way we do, and we consume news the way we do, and none of us, like, we all try our best to give a greatest, bigger picture, but we can't always achieve that. We are faced with the information that is given to us,
Mhm.
and sometimes that causes tunnel visions. That causes a tunnel vision onto topics that that might not really be an issue. For example, it may be like, oh, cyberbullying. This one kid got cyberbullied, and that's played on the news. And now everyone thinks, oh, because this one kid is being cyberbullied and the news talked about it, everyone is. And we think it's a much more bigger problem than what it is. Not saying that it isn't a problem at all, but we get this. We can't. It's possible, very possible, for us to get this tunnel vision on topics and problems that may be larger or that may be smaller than they are, or larger than they are. So because we're not all knowing and we don't have a complete big picture, I just think that's important to say now that whatever that we say is influenced by what we think is what may be a possible big issue that is actually a little issue, or a little issue that may be a big issue. So that's just something I think is important to say,
Mhm.
because if we're talking about how social media and news affects us, it's very good at directing our attention at what we think we should look at, and we don't look at everything else around it.
Yeah.
So there's that. Saying that right now.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for saying that. I just want to let you guys know. I don't know if you guys were paying attention to time, but it's been over an hour. I was just letting you know. We go on longer
Shoot.
if you guys want, but I know it's 12:45 for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, Colin would be the deciding factor of that because I can be up as late as I need to be.
I don't care. Jonah might come over, so
Jonah
in a little
Sheridan?
bit. Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Um,
Jonah! Jonah Sheridan.
but I don't know.
Oh,
So-
wait, he's at Liberty.
No, he came back. He's here for the weekend.
Oh, dope. Sweet.
Yeah, super cool.
Well, okay, so I guess kind of going back to what I was saying.
Shout out to Jonah.
Check him out on Instagram.
Instagram, Snapchat.
He's not even here. But yeah, I really liked what you said because, oh shoot, I forgot my train of thought. That's awkward. But yeah,
I just think that's a big deal because, or important point, not necessarily a big deal, but important point because we always pay attention to what's thrown in front of us. So I'm trying to think of a real life example. And this is no way advocating whether or not, but for a long time it was thought, and I know this is going to be big, thought that marijuana was a bad thing. And I see Colin. But because
that's a whole different topic.
No, listen. No, listen. I'm going to keep it very strict. Okay, I promise.
Very small.
Very small. It's going to be a very small circle.
Okay, good.
You can't do that, bro.
No, I can't because this is a perfect example. For a long time, people were told marijuana was bad. That was the news headlines. No one really questioned why, but that was the tunnel vision. So for the last 30 years, the United States thought that marijuana should be illegal for a bunch of reasons that come now when people are doing their research and their internet and things are public domain and things aren't really like corporations aren't really a big guy secret anymore. We learned that the real reason why marijuana wasn't legal in the first place, no matter what it causes or doesn't cause in reality, was because of paper mill companies having a competition, and we're going to lose money if hemp was allowed to become a resource for fabric and cordage and other textile. That's a perfect example of tunnel vision. Because even now, 30 years later, we have people not looking at the bigger picture and like, oh, this is why it's illegal, or this is why it's not legal. Very short circle,
so it wasn't even illegal because people were smoking it. It was illegal because
of money. That's the
of
whole
money
reason.
and like the differences between paper and like hemp, and like it would probably be cheaper to use hemp, honestly.
So, because hemp was harder to process until someone came out with this machine called the decoordinator, so that way it was able for hemp to be processed much faster and much more efficiently, and slaves didn't have to process it. And so after that happened, it was discovered that hemp made a better rope, it made a better cloth, it made a better paper. We can make our clothes out of it. We could build houses with it, with the fibers. It was a better resource. So, paper companies were like, oh crap! And this one guy in particular would have lost a lot of money if hemp continued to be produced as a resource. And so what happened was they said that they started spreading propaganda around it, and 30 years later, that's what people believe, whether or not they look at what hemp actually does to the body, let alone what it is actually able to do as a resource. I have some clothes that are made out of hemp, and they're some of the best clothes I could ever have.
Dope. Vape Nation.
But that's an example of what tunnel vision does. You know, tunnel vision has convinced a nation for 30 years.
Well, you know your video's off, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
That tunnel vision has convinced the nation that for 30 years that hemp was bad because they thought it was causing people of color to attack and rape white women. That was the propaganda they were spreading. But in reality, it was a much better resource than what we were using at the time, and people were just lost money over it. That's just a prime example of tunnel vision within media right there. No,
Yeah.
not to go any deeper into it, but
Yeah, probably shouldn't for now. We can make that a whole different podcast.
Yeah, that can
That
be
could be
a
that could
totally-
be like literally like a
I
five
get
part
I get
podcast.
the narrow-mindedness. I get the narrow-mindedness aspect of that. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially
and I know that like
another. Oh, sorry.
Colton and I've had this talk before, so it wasn't in any ill manner towards Colton. It was just the best example I could think of off the top of my
Yeah.
head.
Yeah, we've
Oh.
all had this conversation before.
And this is what I'm
knows?
saying. We, as us, who are having this conversation and we're going to put it out on the internet, is important to say that we might also, in whatever facet of life that we're coming from and talking about, will have this narrow-mindedness or closed-mindedness towards something in whatever field that we choose to talk about.
yeah,
yeah,
So take like everything in the world you should hear. Take everything with a little bit of grain of salt. Like
yeah.
most
prime
definitely.
example. So-
Just another real quick
That's like a
example of
disclaimer.
like narrow-mindedness of like social media is the narrow-mindedness of like this is really controversial of like cops and like black people being shot by cops all the time. Like that is the agenda that is being drawn out right now. And I say agenda because we know as a fact that more often than not, cops do not kill people because of their race, or they don't even kill
Oh no,
people.
you gotta be careful with those figures, okay?
I said more often than not, and I didn't use any figures. So I like.
Well, you gotta be careful with that statement
no,
because
I don't have to because more
Okay,
often than not.
okay.
I'm just saying.
All right,
more often than not.
All right. Okay.
no,
Yes. And
Yes, cops
looking.
aren't
Okay.
killing people.
Wait.
Look at your dad.
what?
Yeah.
Your
That-
dad is a
that-
prime
no,
example
no,
of a good cop.
no. All right, sure. Okay, killing people. No. Is there? Do cops have a greater suspicion of black people than white people? Yes.
Yes,
Why is
because-
that? Because black people commit more crimes than any other race, or
Yeah,
blacks
but
and Mexicans commit more crimes. That leads, and this is another debate. That leads cops to being more skittish. That leads to more accidental firings. So more often than not,
and bad training. It's bad training.
yeah,
of the
bad
cops,
training too.
honestly.
Bad training too. But do more often than not do cops shoot at or blacks more than white people? Yeah, they do.
Well,
That-
I'm not saying blacks over white people. I'm saying in general, like more cops don't kill people rather
I
than
was-
not killing people.
Okay, true.
So
They don't.
You can't. But
kill
that's
people.
what's being drawn right now. That cops are all bad and they're not doing anything to help society. Like there's even calls in like Washington to get rid of the police departments. Like people are trying to actually make that a. I'm being serious. Like this is real in Washington, not Washington D.C., but Washington
Really?
State. Yeah, there's
Really?
in Seattle, near Seattle, there's outer towns that are trying to make this a thing of where they get rid of or they totally like abolish police departments.
Yeah.
It's like it's either Washington or Oregon. I know it's out in the West. It might even be California. Shoot, might be North California, but
On that topic of narrow-mindedness, that was a good example. Ish.
really controversial. No, it
very,
was a good
very
example,
controversial.
but it's controversial.
Yeah. But here's a great example.
Here's
So
a great. Those are all okay, but here's a good.
Those are okay, but here's a good example. No. Okay, so narrow-mindedness. So, I grew up in Cambodia. My parents moved there when I was 2 years old, to be missionaries, and I grew up there for 14 years. And so I was here in the States, and I had some friends who had a daughter. These old people who were my friends had a daughter who married a Cambodian that came to the States, and so their daughter was married to a Cambodian man, and that parent, my friend, wouldn't let her daughter go to Cambodia, and I was like, why wouldn't you let her do that? And she was like, well, I've heard so much bad things about that. I've heard people getting raped. I've heard of people getting mugged or whatever. And but I like stepped back for a second. I was like, well, yeah, that's true, but that's one aspect, like 1 or 2% of like all of Cambodia. Like media, going back to media presents like what they want people to see and what will sell.
And that's
and
why,
so,
yeah.
And so like I told my friend, that lady, I told her, are there rapes in America? Are there theft? Is there theft in America? And she's like, well, yeah, but there's all these, I haven't seen it, or I don't personally see it right now. And I was like, well, I grew up in Cambodia for 14 years and I never saw that. I never saw rape. And I saw a couple thefts, but that was a couple. And she was like, well, I've just heard so many bad things. And I was like, have you been there, or like seen the whole picture of Cambodia? And she's like, no. And I was like, people in Cambodia can read stories about America and see these cop shootings, or see these rapes, or see these bad things that Americans do. But that's one aspect of it. They're not seeing the whole. That's so narrow-minded.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Especially when you're getting it from like one source.
Yeah, and her son-in-law, the Cambodian guy, he was like, yeah, I'll protect her. I know the place. I know the land, and I'll protect her. And I know where the bad parts are. And she was like, yeah, the bad parts. And I was like, hey, do you know the bad parts about America as well? And she was like, well, yeah. And I was like, it's the same thing. But like, it's just a prime example of narrow-mindedness.
Yeah, 100. That's even better example than what I could give.
Yeah, that's better than mine.
So,
you were right, Colin, all along.
No, but that example though, like, it's very true, and you need to have a broad, narrow, like being specific and narrow with your thoughts sometimes is great, but like you need to get the broad picture, and you need to get the broad picture first, and then you can go in depth about a certain
seek
thing.
the truth. Yeah.
Even if you are narrow-minded, it's good to have a broad picture.
Yeah.
So that way you can either reinforce what you're saying, or you're challenged in what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
whether you want to have a change of mind or just stay on what you believe, it's good to know as much as you can, so that way you can either reinforce or debate it.
Yeah. There's only one truth to a lot of things. A lot of things. But I think with that said, I think it's like been over like an hour.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end it. Good message.
For sure.
Well, all right. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys watched this long, whoever's watching,
did you call it a vlog? This is gonna be a podcast, bro, not a vlog.
I didn't call it a vlog. Did I call it?
You never said vlog.
Well, it's been a podcast.
I don't think you said vlog.
But you just okay.
Go watch our other podcast. It's awesome. There's 2 other guys that aren't here tonight, but will be here in the future. And yeah, the only thing that we want to ask of you is to comment down below your opinions or whatever you thought of the podcast. We'll read it, and then we'll correct you, as Jonathan said.
If you cyberbully us, then we will not care.
Yeah.
We'll just put that out there.
We'll just cyberbully you back. It's okay.
No.
It's okay. Forewarning. No. But yeah, thank you for watching. For right now, the podcast can only be found on YouTube until we find another outlet. So yeah, sweet. All right, bye guys. Bye.
Hey, see you later.